Howdy! Welcome to another episode of the Bible in 1 Year with the Preacher's Husband. Today we're going through 1 Kings chapter 22 and also 2 Chronicles chapter 18, which is pretty close to the same materials. It's just another version of it, of the same stories that we're going through. Now tomorrow we're going to go through 2 Chronicles chapter 19 all the way through 23. So a bunch of chapters tomorrow. So, we're starting out here in 1 Kings chapter 22. And right off the bat, we've got this division, of course, the divided kingdom as usual. But here we're talking about King Jehoshaphat and King Ahab. Now, there was a 3-year lull between wars with Aram and Israel, who was King Ahab, was over Israel. And in this 3rd year, King Jehoshaphat of Judah went to visit the king of Israel, King Ahab. And of course, while they're there, they're trying to put together some sort of a peace agreement. And King Ahab's like, well, you know what? This place up here north of us is, it used to be ours, and it should be ours. It should be Israel's territory. It's Ramoth Gilead. I think you need to help me fight and take this place back from Aram. So he asked Jehoshaphat, will you go with me to fight in Ramoth Gilead? And Jehoshaphat replied to him and says, I am as you are, my people as your people, my horses as your horses. But first thing you got to do, though, is ask what the Lord's will is. Ask God what his will is. And, of course, Ahab's like, well, all my prophets say I'm going to win if we go do this. And he's like, no. Isn't there a prophet of the Lord here anymore that can tell us what we need, what needs to happen? And King Ahab's like, well, there's just one dude left, and his name is Micaiah. What was his name again? It's Micaiah. Okay, Micaiah. Yeah, that guy. So Jehoshaphat's like, well, go get that guy. He's like, well, this guy Micaiah, he's always prophesying bad things about me. He never says anything good about me. Jehoshaphat's like, your king shouldn't say that. It doesn't matter what God says is what God says. So call this guy. Let's see what he has to say. So they do. They call him, and they get him, and they bring him in there. And of course, he comes in, and they say, look, Micaiah, all these prophets are unanimously saying that Ahab's going to win if we go and fight this guy. What do you say? We need you to speak favorably about Ahab. And Micaiah's like, look, as the Lord lives, I will say whatever the Lord says to me, and that's it. I'm only going to say what God says. So they're like, okay, well, tell us. Should we or should we not go to war with Ramoth Gilead? And Micaiah's like, march up and succeed. Absolutely. Boom, you're going to win. But what I saw was all of Israel scattered on the hills, like sheep without a shepherd. And the Lord said, they have no master. Let everyone return home in peace. So the king of Israel, Ahab, jumped up and said, see, didn't I tell you? This dude never prophesies good about me. Only about me being dead, or only about disaster and bad negative things. So there they are. And one thing that really stood out to me was verse 24 and 25. They're kind of getting ill at Micaiah here. And then Zedekiah, son of Chenanan, all these names, came up and he hit Micaiah on the cheek and demanded, did the Spirit of the Lord leave me to speak to you? And Micaiah replied, you will soon see when you go to hide in an inner chamber on that day. In an inner chamber on that day. My first thought about an inner chamber was I'm thinking about Solomon's temple and the inner chamber of Solomon's temple, the Holy of Holies. But that's not what Micaiah was talking about here at all. He was actually, it was funny. He replied that the matter would be settled on the day that Zedekiah, confronted by the defeat of Ahab's army, would try to protect himself by hiding in a toilet. Hiding in a toilet. He's going to hide in a John. Go figure that one out. But we'll see what happens with that one as we go forward. So we're going to progress on to the battle. And of course, they go to war. They do. And Ahab's like trying to be conniving and kind of, I don't know, trying to be sneaky about things. He's like, Jehoshaphat, I'm going to disguise myself and I'm going to go into battle. But you wear your royal attire and you stay out here as the king. So the king Aram had ordered all of his 32 chariot commanders, you see. He said, do not fight with anyone at all except the king of Israel. So there's Jehoshaphat dressed up as a king, and then here's Ahab dressed up as a soldier. Nobody knows he's the king. Everybody thinks that Jehoshaphat is the king. So when the chariot commanders saw, they go screaming after Jehoshaphat, trying to go kill him. But when Jehoshaphat cries out, they realize, oh, this dude, he's not the king of Israel. So they turn back and quit pursuing him. But this random guy who was shooting a bow and arrow, pulls this bow back and shoots this arrow without even taking any special aim. And the arrow strikes the king of Israel, which is Ahab, through the joints in his armor. He was super badly wounded. And there's this depiction of the blood running down, and he's in this chariot standing there facing the army of Aram, and he's bleeding, and there's just puddles of blood in his chariot, and then he dies there in that chariot. And verse 38 says, then someone washed the chariot at the pool of Samaria. The dogs licked up his blood, and the prostitutes bathed in it, according to the word of the Lord that he had spoken. So that was the fulfillment of what we had heard in chapter 21, verses 19 through 24, about the demise of Ahab and how he would die. Now, this fulfillment here and the fulfillment in Chronicles is not exactly like it said it was going to be, because it was actually only partially fulfilled. Elijah's prophecy that we're talking about here from chapter 21 didn't happen in exactly the same place that he said it was going to. And it did say that one part was fulfilled when the dogs licked up his blood, although Ahab did not die where the prophecy indicated. Later, dogs licked up the blood of one of Ahab's sons in Jezreel when Joram's body was dumped there, though. So that was the place that apparently Ahab was supposed to die. So here's the kicker behind that. Possibly this later event where the son dies may mark the complete fulfillment of this prophecy from 1 Kings chapter 21, 19 through 24, since a fate pronounced over a father can be representatively fulfilled in his son, and since according to ancient understanding, the blood of a father courses through the veins of his son. So, that being said, in theory, the blood of Ahab was licked up in that location by the dogs because his blood runs through his son, as it were. Who knows? What do you think about that? What do you think the case is there? It's good enough for me, in my opinion. Sounds good. I like it. I think that's a prophecy fulfilled from my perspective. What do you think about it? What do you think about freedom? What do you think of the cost of it? We've talked a lot about bloodshed and how much bloodshed is involved in gaining freedom. And there's been a lot of that in the world, you know. Felix Frankfurter once said, "We have enjoyed so much freedom for so long that we are perhaps in danger of forgetting how much blood it cost to establish the Bill of Rights." I think there's a lot of people that really need to study some history, study the Bible, study how we became a country here in the United States. Robert J. McCracken once said, "We on this continent should never forget that men first crossed the Atlantic not to find soil for their plows, but to secure liberty for their souls." And last but not least, my quote for the day is from John Quincy Adams, and he says, referring to posterity, "You will never know how much it has cost my generation to preserve your freedom. I hope you will make good use of it." And that's my hope for you guys too. I hope that you make good use of your freedom, especially your freedom of religion and your freedom to read and worship as you please. I hope this has touched you. If it has, click the like button and the subscribe button. Of course, click the little jingle bell so you can get notified the next time I upload a video, which will be tomorrow, for another episode of the Bible in 1 Year with the Preacher's Husband. We'll see you then.